11 years after the 1959 National Education Commission, in 1970, the next education policy came about. That's more than a decade. That's a long time before individuals decided to once again look at what education had to offer in Pakistan. This particular policy is also known as the Noor Khan Report because of the extensive work of one individual in the process of formulating this policy. According to the 1970 policy, the objectives of education were slightly different. One, education was seen to play a central role to sustain Islamic values and national unity, something that we found missing in the 1959 report. Islamic values and Islamic education was again brought to the forefront in the 1970 policy, something that is critical to education in Pakistan. After all, we are an Islamic country and our education should be based on the Islamic ideology and teachings of Islam. And so this was seen as a strong point, as an objective of education. We shall look as we go through the 1970 policy to what extent the objective was achieved. But at least it came back on paper after 11 years. Number two, scientific and technical education was to be given attention to fulfill the economic needs of the country. For the first time since 1947, an education policy focuses on economic needs. How does the country develop monetarily? After all, if we are to gain a proficient place in the world society among the nations, we will have to have a strong economy, we'll have to have a strong currency, and in order to do that, the policy recommended science education. Science was seen at that time as the key to progress, to development, to innovation, to inventions, to creativity, and so on. And so the Commission, in its wisdom, recommended that in the 1970 policy, science education should be stressed because they saw, and I personally think they had the vision to see 20, 30 years down the line, that if today our children got a good, solid, science-based education, their lives in the future will be much, much better, because with this strong education foundation and then going obviously ahead with higher education and stuff like that, they will be able to lead much better and more prosperous lives for themselves and in the long run benefit the country as well. So we see in these two objectives that Islamic education and principles and objectives are stressed, scientific principles and education are stressed. Two key elements for success, because one will get you the monetary and the economic benefits, the other will make you a better human being. And both were seen as key elements in what education should be able to achieve for all our children. 3. The role of the teacher is decisive in improving the standard of education. This policy talked about standard, quality. Yes, provide education, but what kind of education are you giving? Is it of some standard? Is it quality education? Will it benefit our students in the long run? Will they be able to compete in the job market, in the international market, for higher education seats at prestigious institutions? This was critical. When a policy claims to be looking at standards and quality, it begins on a sound footing. Number 4, decentralization of powers for educational administrative control in order to get financial independence and educational freedom. Now, this policy also looks at educational administration. Obviously, when you have schools, colleges, universities, there is administration, and that needs to be addressed. After all, educational administration is not the same as administering a business, and therefore, focusing on educational administration also was a key objective of the 1970 education policy.